You are listening to Redefining Disability, an adaptive sports podcast brought to you by Move United. I am your host, Sean Butcher, and I have the privilege of serving as the editor of Move United magazine, the nation's leading adaptive sports publication. Each week, tune in to hear how sports have made it possible for our nation's adaptive athletes, training tips from the best coaches and program leaders, and news on the latest technology, equipment, and trends in the industry. Jesi Stracham is a trailblazing entrepreneur, speaker, and fierce advocate dedicated to transforming lives through her innovative ventures. As the co-owner of Freedom Longevity and Wellness LKN, she pioneers cutting-edge therapies that redefine holistic health and recovery. Jesi also co-developed the Wheel With Me Adapt Fit app, empowering wheelchair users to reclaim their independence through fitness. Through her Wheel With Me Foundation, she drives life-changing empowerment programs and hosts an inspiring summer camp for adult wheelchair users. Jesi is also the author of Power in the Role, A Life at Full Throttle After Spinal Cord Injury. So let's chat with her. So Jesi, I'd love to just start by talking, we'll just right out of the gate, talk a little bit about your book. So Power in the Role, A Life at Full Throttle After Spinal Cord Injury. First of all, why did you want to write a book?
Honestly, I didn't. Somebody approached me to write a book, and I think this is so important for the community to know and understand. When people approach you with opportunities, make sure that you validate their credentials and you dig deeper. There's a lot of people that just want to use us because we're disabled and we're the sexy thing to kind of use, and they use us to get personal gain. And so I was approached by somebody who, I'm going to use quotations here, was an editor publisher of books. I spent 2 years spilling my life to her, only to find out that she was a liar
Oh,
and was fake. And so I ended up kind of scrapping the idea, but I was working on a book for our nonprofit called How Wheelchair Users Build Fitness. And so imagine Chicken Soup for the Soul, of collection of stories, style of vibe, but from wheelchair users all over the globe. And so it's how people achieve mind, body, and spirit from a wheelchair, and it's available on Amazon. So we wrote that book, and the woman that edited it actually does a lot of editing for New Mobility magazine. And so I was like, "Oh, you're involved in the community?" She's like, "Yeah, I've been following you since 2016." And I was like, "Oh, this is great. So you've seen the transition of Jesi and all the different phases from purple hair Jesi to current day Jesi." And it was really cool because I literally spent 6 months just talking to Google Docs. I worked at an orthodontist office at the time, so I had a 45-minute commute, and I would just hit talk to text. And literally my entire 45-minute drive, I would talk to text to Google Docs. Now, it picked up half the words. It didn't make much sense. But at the end of 6 months, I had over 60 pages of different stories that have been impactful throughout my life, even pre-injury. And I handed this Google Doc to Catherine, and within 3 months, she gave me a book, and we filled in the dots. And it took us about 2 years. So anyone that wants to write a book, if you're looking for an editor, Catherine Tink's amazing. I'll make sure to send her email for the show notes. Very involved in our community. She's non-disabled, but loves our community so much. And she's not here to take advantage of us. She's awesome, great to work with, very professional, and does all the submission on the behalf. So she actually got me submitted to a publisher. The publisher picked me up. And so I am a published author that was able to get into Barnes& and Noble, Books A Million, and then on Amazon as well. And then I have signed personalized copies on my website. But yeah, it's really cool. I did my first signing at the Barnes& and Noble here where I live in Mooresville, North Carolina. And then we're planning on getting Barnes& and Noble to come out to some of the Abilities Expo. So right now, we currently have a signing scheduled for the Chicago Abilities Expo on that Saturday.
that's fantastic. Yeah, and so what turned out to, as at the beginning as something that wasn't a very positive experience has now at least turned into something fruitful and positive and an actual product that you can get your hands on.
Oh, it's wild. It's wild to just like I mean, I have copies of the book, and it's crazy to look my life up until I bought a business. So my life up until 2025, the beginning, is all documented in 200 pages of a book that the
Mm,
world can see. And as always, anyone that's followed me for a while, they know I'm very real, raw, honest,
mhm,
blunt. I don't really sugarcoat anything. And so that's exactly what you can expect in the book. I talk about growing up without my mom in the house. She was an over-the-road truck driver, to the fact that I've been on wheels since I was born, to my struggle with sex addiction as a woman, and using men to validate my body, to addiction and struggling with substances from alcohol to pills to getting paralyzed and diving deeper and leaning more into that lifestyle to my paralyzed body, not being able to handle it and figuring out what life has to offer us, paralyzed or not.
Yeah. And I wanted to dive a little deeper into some of those themes that you talk about. So obviously, one of the things that through this book, and I think through just the work that you've done in general, you talk about confronting denial and anger.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we all go through stages, particularly when something happens to us. So what was some of the things that you were going through and how, like these are life lessons that anybody can benefit from. So like what were some of the things that you did, during that process and early on in your injury?
Early on in my injury, the first year, I became a victim of my reality. And I played the whole, and we've all met them. We've all kind of probably been there if we acquired our disability, where like the world owes us because we're paralyzed, and the world owes us because we have a disability. Well, because I use a wheelchair, you should want to work with me and all the things. And it was a very entitled sense of self. And it took a lot for me to kind of shift that perspective and realize, just because I'm paralyzed, nothing's owed to me. Everyone has their struggles, everyone has their issues. And the more that we focus on those issues, the bigger they become in our life. And because we can't
Hmm.
hide our disability, we can't get away from our disability a lot of times as wheelchair users, we focus solely on that. And then that forces us to focus even more on the negative of how we're slighted in society and how things aren't accessible, which are all true, right? It's all true things. But really, what did it for me was when I went back to work, 7 years after my spinal cord injury, I decided to go back to work full time and actually get off of Social Security disability. I had had part-time jobs in between, some contract work, but I never had actual full-time employment.
Hmm.
And my dad had got COVID, was in the hospital. I was renting the basement from them at the time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like something happens to my dad, my mom and I can't afford the mortgage. And I'm like, I'm gonna have to get a real job so I could be good. And before I was paralyzed, I was an orthodontic assistant. So the person that tortures kids with braces or adults, changing the wires and colors and then doing Invisalign. And so that's what I went back into. And I was a chairside assistant. So I worked on patients' teeth from the chair. And then it led me to managing the clinic. So I had 4 staff members that I also managed, the only person with a disability, visible disability rather.
Hmm.
And I managed this clinic and I was like, wow, I've been living in poverty for 7 years because I didn't think I could do this.
Hmm.
And by this point, I had done World's Toughest Mudder, which is a 24-hour Tough Mudder.
Hmm.
I had drove to California from North Carolina by myself 3 times. Like I had done big things,
Hmm. Right.
but going back to work made me feel like an adult and a human again. And I think that's where the mark is often missed with our community is we forget that we're actually human beings, that we actually need to contribute to society, and we're going to have to do things. And now here I am, I've been off Social Security disability now for 4 years. I am on my state's Workers with Disabilities Medicaid program. So some states do have programs for workers with disabilities where we can work full time and get full Medicaid. And I take full advantage of that. Best insurance we can get, everything's covered, don't have to think twice. And so I'm currently battling a wound from a skin infection.
Hmm.
It's on the back of my leg, but like new fear unlocked, ladies, if you transfer to the toilet to calf, or men, you're using a public restroom and you're transferring to a toilet, carry Clorox wipes and wipe that toilet. I
Hmm.
went 9 years or 10 years, no issues, no skin issues ever on my bottom. I've had MRSA in my armpits and like on my stomach from
Hmm.
Tough Mudders, but I've never had a wound issue on the back of my legs or my bottom. And I got a skin infection. It opened, led to a hole, and I've been battling it since the end of July. And I'm finally coming to an end with it. But I say that to say, like, this stuff can creep up on you at any time. And when I went back to work full time, if I was still working in an office and I didn't get creative and get a remote position, it'd be a whole different game. And so, like, I think that's a game that we don't really, I never considered that when
Hmm.
I went back. Um, and so I just working full time though, like being off disability, man, it is the most freeing thing. I don't think about how much money can I earn before losing my benefits, right?
Oh,
Like
wow. Yeah.
you know how freeing that is. And it's like not checking my bank account before swiping my card because I know there's money in there because I'm
Hmm.
working. Like those small things that a lot of people take for granted. And I mean, this is society as a whole, right? But in our situation, I think a lot of us don't have the idea that I'm ever going to buy a house, I'm ever going to be financially independent, I'm ever going to do these things
Right.
because we get trapped by the comfort of knowing that this check is coming regardless because we are so much more susceptible to different medical issues. But like, there's so many jobs out there that are doable for us. My best friend that she's the director of my nonprofit, she also works for AMF, which is a restraint company for us. And she travels nonstop and goes to all these trade shows for AMF and has a full-time job off Social Security disability. Her boyfriend, also a wheelchair user, he actually does remote customer service at home for Delta. And so he works for Delta, has, I think, for 4 years now at home for customer service. And so,
Hmm.
like, if you're willing to look hard enough and try hard enough, there are things out there for us. Now, I'm not going to say that it's going to be easy. I applied to 10 offices. I only got 2 interviews when I went back
Right.
to work full time. And like that's to be said, my dad and I had this conversation the other day. My dad and mom are 70, and my dad's looking for a part-time job to do in retirement. And
Hmm.
he's like, I just feel like everybody's looking at my age. And I'm like, true story, Dad. I feel that way. Like we our old office manager would get on social media and look people up online before hiring them. And like obviously you look up me, you're gonna see it. And like the two things that deter offices from hiring me, they've been very honest. I love when that goes off. Um, the two things that they've been very honest about are one, the disability and like their imagination of what I can or can't do.
Yeah. The
And then
perception, right? Hmm.
correct. And then two is the fact that I have so much going on. They know that's not a long-term thing for me. And so I say that to say, like, if you're looking for employment as somebody with a disability, while you're looking for employment, maybe make your profile private and then maybe be upfront in your resume. I added to the description of my resume that I use a wheelchair full time, but I'm actually very capable and very independent. If you give me a chance, I can do it. And it was really cool because before I was paralyzed, I was an orthodontic assistant. I never was on track to be an office manager. I was like base level pay. And then I get paralyzed. I go back eventually. And now I'm a clinic manager and I'm making more
Hmm.
money than I've ever made in my life. I mean, last year alone, I made $80,000 working in the orthodontist office. And I'm like, that's something that even pre-injury, Jesse couldn't
Right.
comprehend making that kind of money, right? And now paralyzed Jesse definitely never thought I'd make that money. And it's like we limit ourselves so much more than we need to be.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously society, as we talked about, already has this perception and limits individuals with disabilities. So when you do it to yourself, it's like it's even worse.
Yeah. And that's our biggest barrier, right? Is I talk about this in coaching. I'm like, our perception of us limits us. Our perception of what we think society thinks of us limits us. And then the perception that society does have over us
Mhm.
often limits us. Like I make it, I think, very clear. You've got to be clear and direct. I'm capable. I'm able. You need to give me a chance. It's going to look like I'm struggling. This is my normal. Let me be. And just be very vocal. And the more upfront and honest you are,
Mhm.
the more things are going to work out in your favor and the more people are going to trust that, oh, they've actually got it.
Fantastic. And the other, there's like 3 points or three takeaways from, your book was the navigating self-destructive behaviors. And I know you may have alluded to some of this already, but, and again, when we all have something that happens to us, we can often spiral, right? There's a spiraling effect. And so I'm, not, maybe that's not the story for, that's not everyone's story, but, that is a common story. So I imagine that was part of your experience.
There's 100%, there's studies that support we are what we think about, that and our life becomes what we think about. And like the more that you obsess over things, honestly, my partner has brought this to light for me in the best way of he's like, you just hyperfixate. And then when you hyperfixate, the next thing you know, everything starts going wrong. And since he's called me out or called me forward on that, it's definitely changed the way that I focus on when things are going wrong.
Mm.
And this has just been in the last month. And so I think that's also to say, hey, you're never done growing. We're
Right.
constantly evolving as humans, and you need to be open to that. The minute you stop growing is really the minute that you actually die and stay complacent, even if you're still alive and breathing. Um, and he called me forward and he's like, you just like think about what you're saying because there's been obviously a lot of pain with
Hmm.
the wound and trying to heal it and like just being mindful of staying off my butt and then the AD kicks in and all the things. And so it's like I would come to bed and I'm like, I just want to chop my legs off. They hurt so bad. They hurt so bad. Right? And something that small creates this compounding effect of something so big
Hmm.
where now I'm just constantly in pain. Life is so hard. Oh, it's just such a struggle. The words that we say become reality.
Hmm.
And so
Absolutely.
I our community is really quick to be like, you're toxically positive and all the things. And I'm like, it's not toxic positivity. It's literally fake it till you make it. Because yeah, I feel like crap more than I feel good. That's just the
Mhm.
reality of living with a spinal cord injury. Between pain and stomach issues and your bladder and your bowel. And it's like most of the time I feel like crap. But if I focus on how much I feel like crap, then I'm gonna just feel like crap all the time.
Right.
But even in all that hardness, there's so much good. I'm like, oh my gosh, my partner and I, like, we're planning on getting married this year and having
Mm.
a baby and buying a house. And it's like, there's so much good. And even through the wound, like, I come out, my house is clean because he takes care of it. And I'm like, wow, a year, 2 years ago, I was single. And like, now I have the man of my dreams. And I got that because I decided to focus on the good in life.
Hmm.
And I attracted this human being. I attracted exactly what I wanted. And like a lot of times in our community, we don't think that we can get exactly what we want, but you genuinely attract that. Your
Hmm.
vibe is what's going to attract what you want or push it further from you.
Right.
There's been plenty of things financially and professionally I've pushed further from me just through my talk track. But like my partner, I brought that man into me because I spent a year just focusing on being the quality of person I wanted to attract. And then the next thing I know, I got that.
Yes.
But it doesn't stop. The work doesn't stop there. You have to continue to work, evolve, and grow. Because just because you get what you desire doesn't mean you get to keep it.
Yes. That's a good point. And we all have bad days, right?
Oh
And
gosh.
but we can't fester and we can't, hang on to those bad days and we can't focus on those bad days. So
Oh, and it's so easy to do too, because it's like especially when paralysis is just paralyzing, like it's just paralysing. That's what I say. I'm like, we're just out here, my body's just bodying today.
Mhm.
And then
Right.
like when that happens, and then you add in normal life things where it's like, oh, this bill came I wasn't expecting, or oh, my job, my coworkers are just being nuts and like whatever. Oh, my spouse and I had a fight, my kids are being wild. Like you add in that stuff
Hmm.
now it feels extra big. And so the less you can focus on the paralysis stuff, like I'm gonna be 11. We're recording this on the 12th. I'm gonna be 11 on the 18th of January in my injury. And like we were talking the other day, me and a buddy about how normal it is. Like I don't even think twice about cathing. I don't even think twice
Right.
about bowel programming. I'm like, all right, I'm sticking this like transanal irrigation to flush it all out. Like, hey, I'm gonna have a clean rectum, right? Like that's no, and we could talk about that and laugh about it
Right.
where we talk about that with
It's just
someone
normal.
non-disabled, right? They're like, whoa.
Yeah. It's just normal. It's just part of the normal routine.
Right. And as long as we don't hyperfixate on it, like you can't hyperfixate on, oh, I got a calf.
Hmm.
Like there's a difference in let me go pee real quick and I gotta go calf.
Hmm.
And if you can start checking yourself with the way you speak about your injury, it changes your whole perspective of your life.
Yeah. And the third takeaway was reclaiming the self sense of purpose and independence.
Listen, you know what I tell everyone who's newly injured? Have a routine first thing in the morning. Like you need to have a time to get out of bed. I don't care how bad you're feeling. A
Hmm.
time to get out of bed, a time like get ready. I work from home a lot. And so there was a stint there where I didn't brush my hair all day, or I didn't get dressed for the day. So, and like sometimes I just rarely do I do makeup for the day. I'm like, I'm cool on that, but like I at least brush my hair and get dressed where there was such a long period of time where I didn't do any of that.
Mm,
And you don't realize how much that compounds where you just stop taking care of yourself. Like get up, brush your teeth, take a shower, and it doesn't matter how long it takes you, especially if you're newly injured. The more reps you get doing that, the more chair durance you have. So like say you're fresh out of the hospital and all you can do is just get out of bed, go pee and brush your teeth. All right, that's a start.
hmm
Next week, let's try to get up, brush our teeth, get dressed. The next week, let's try to get up, brush our
hmm
teeth, do bowel program, take a shower. And like you work on adding more to it. But the hardest thing and one of the biggest things I tell newly injured, I'm like, y'all, your chair durance is not there. Like, don't go home and expect to be able to spend 12 hours in your chair.
Right.
Not realistic. If you get three, that's cool. And then go rest and then go ahead and get another. I have a buddy who was actually just paralyzed back in October, motorcycle accident. And I happened like crazy way how I met him, but he got home, owns his own business. He does wheel repair.
Mm,
And like so he had gotten paralyzed in a motorcycle accident. He's the main guy doing wheel repairs. And he's like, I don't know what to do. Like I can't be in the chair long periods of times. I'm really struggling. I'm like, buddy, like, you're not a burden. Chill out. You were paralyzed 3 months ago.
right.
Like, let's breathe for a second and realize that 6 months from now, as long as you keep pushing at it, you will have that endurance. It
hmm
will come. He's like, I'm so weak right now. I'm like, I know you don't have time because you have a business that's like paying your bills and all the things, but like, you got to give it time. And I think that's one of the hardest things for us to wrap our head around because, like, you have to learn chair endurance. And then once you learn chair endurance, you have to learn how long you're really spending being paralyzed from transferring, getting dressed, cooking yourself food. Like there's things that are just going to take a little longer for us.
hmm
And when you can figure out what that looks like, now you can actually schedule your day to be productive and grow and create whatever you want. But it really, that those early days, like give yourself some purpose. And that purpose is let me just get out of bed and get myself ready for the day.
Yeah, and there's no overnight fix for anything, right? So so it
Yeah.
does, to your point, it does take time. And after your injury in 2015, I know that adaptive sports played a role in part of this recovery. So obviously, Move United being an adaptive sports organization, I'd love to learn a little bit about that part of your journey.
Yeah, I'm super grateful for Move as well. Y'all, we have my nonprofit co-hosts a summer camp with the Adaptive Outdoor Education Center in Carabasset Valley, Maine.
Hmm
This will be our fifth year, and Move has given us a grant every single year for camp. And so, like, awesome organization. Thank you for helping us host something for wheelchair users to get out into nature and live their best life. But yeah,
Absolutely.
adaptive sports, dude, even if you're not athletic, even if you don't play sports, go participate in adaptive sports because the community alone will save you and show you what you're capable of.
Absolutely. Yeah, I frequently talk about the community. I mean, you don't have to aspire ever to be a Paralympic athlete or an elite athlete in any sport. Just come out and find something that you want to do that not only helps with community, but also, just again, helps mentally, physically, and emotionally, all the above.
Adaptive sports and driving, two number one things that you can do when you get discharged from rehab. Like if you can get to an adaptive sports program, I love every time. Get to an adaptive sports program and seriously go and just participate. Like it's just so freeing. You surprise yourself by what you're capable of. But then driving, being able to take yourself to your own appointments, get into the car, and like even if it takes you 10 minutes to get your wheelchair in the car, okay? Just getting in the car and being able to drive where nobody around you knows you're paralyzed. You're just driving. Like those things early on were the most important for me. I water skied my first year of injury. Did wheelchair MX where you take your wheelchair to the skate park. I ended up trying out for the national or for the national curling team, made the national developmental team 3 years. Um, like I've done pretty much every adaptive sport under the sun and then found my way to Tough Mudder, which is obstacle course racing like
Hmm
Spartans, which they didn't have an adaptive sports program in the beginning and we kind of built that out. Like find what you love. If you love jujitsu and you got paralyzed and like you're trying to do jujitsu, figure out a way to do it from the wheelchair. Like
hmm
you can still do what you love. I raced off road my entire life, got paralyzed, raced for Polaris for 3 years in a single seat side by side. Like if there's a will, there's a way. And again, just because you use a wheelchair, just because you had an accident, does not mean anything will be handed to you. You have to work, use your resources. Like I've gotten grants from different nonprofits to help me be able to
Hmm.
travel for
Yeah,
sport. And
absolutely.
there's so many resources available to us, and we just need to put the work in to get them. Nothing's going to be handed to you. And as soon as you get that out of your mind and realize there's no handouts, that's when you can actually start living to the fullest and get more out of this life.
Yeah. Did you do something with Spark, one of our member organizations down in your area at all? Either winter
Um,
skiing or
yeah,
water
yeah,
skiing?
yeah. We did Ski Beach.
Okay.
That's where I got my first adaptive ski. Now, listen, I want to get out to Colorado. I'd love to go to Breck and really get some powder. So I live in the great state of North Carolina, and we typically only get slush
Right.
to ski in for our ski
Likewise.
week. Yeah.
Likewise. I live in Maryland, so the mid-Atlantic
Yeah.
ice, is all we get.
Same, right? And so it's like I want to go I want to ski powder one day in my life. But yeah, so we've done the ski beach here
Okay.
with Spark.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit, you talked a little bit about your foundation and your nonprofit, but you also have, you do some fitness and some coaching. So talking a little bit about the Will With Me Adapt fitness app.
Okay, so the Wheel with Me Adapt Fitness app it's Wheel with Me Adapt Fit. We founded it. It was myself and then Nikki Walsh. Nikki Walsh is a personal trainer out of Philly. She kept being, I had the app initially, and she's like, "How do I start an app? How
Mm,
do I start an app?" And I was like, "Girl, we merge. Like, there's too many of us competing for the seat at the top. We need to collaborate on this." So we're actually in our third year of being together. And it's our third year, and it's just been so good. We have full programming for at home, full programming for in the gym. We do live classes in the app
mm,
weekly. Are adding some mindset stuff in. We're working on expanding some wheelchair courses for the mindset stuff. And then also adding more workouts regularly. We upload at least one new workout a month, whether that's a class or a routine. So there's classes where it's like this, we're talking to the camera, we're
hmm.
interactive, or there's routines where you just play the movement. It shows you how to do the movement. You do the movement, you move on to the next movement.
Okay. Without, adaptate, do you go through adaptations and everything along those
Yep,
lines?
it's all seated fitness.
Okay.
And then for like we have body weight only stuff, and we typically recommend that for our quads with no dexterity, where they throw on some wrist weights to be able to do it. And then also, active hands are another thing that Nikki regularly talks about. And we have like the full resource list in there as well. And there's a community, which is probably my favorite part. I love the community aspect, the message board, getting to see where people are at, and then the comments on the workouts and everything.
Wonderful. And the last question I have for you, you mentioned your nonprofit, but I'd love to talk, just hear a little bit more, and for our listeners to hear a little bit more about kind of the focus of
Yeah.
what you do.
Wheel With Me Foundation is dedicated to serving the independence of wheelchair users. Our goal is to get more wheelchair users off the system and living fully independent lives. Like, let's get out of our parents' house. Let's go out and actually contribute to society and be the true change we want to see in the world. So, every quarter, we have what's called an empowerment week where members of our community teach their skill or trade on Zoom completely free. We've had everything from Dr. Tepper with sex and disability to how to be an advocate. We've had Danny Gomez on how to be an actor. So we bring a lot of different people in to just show what you're capable of as a wheelchair user.
Hmm.
And then we have our yearly summer camp that we co-host with the Adaptive Outdoor Education Center in Maine. And so we go up there for a weekend. It's Thursday to Sunday. We apply for grants and get fundraising. And so it's only $150 to attend.
Mm,
That includes your lodging and your food for the weekend. So all you're
amazing.
responsible for is that 150 and getting your butt to Portland, Maine. The shuttle bus comes and picks you up, takes you back to camp, and then you better be ready for 4 days of a good time with an intimate group. There's only about 15 to 18 of us every
Mm,
year. So we keep it intimate and we just go out and push people past their limits. Our ultimate goal is to build a transitional community to integrate wheelchair users back into independent society.
mm. That is awesome. And I mean, $150 for all of that is a pretty reasonable cost for sure.
We work really hard to get again, the MOVE grant is one that's been really beneficial for us and helping make that possible.
Well, I hope our listeners will go out and get Power in the Role, Life at Full Throttle after spinal cord injury. Where, you mentioned Barnes and Noble. Where can people get it?
If you want a signed personalized copy, you go to jesistracham.com. It's available on there. I actually just ordered a restock. Thank you to everyone who's got it so far. It's been so cool. Amazon's delayed on shipping for some reason. It says it's available on Amazon, but it's delayed. Barnes and Noble, McFarland Publishing, and then Books a Million will all get it sent to you pretty quickly. And then the audiobook should be out by the end of March or so. I'm currently in the process of recording that.
Oh, so you get to do your own, you get to have your own voice. That's awesome.
Yeah, we have two chapters left to record and then a couple edits to do. So it was really hard listening back to it. I'm not gonna lie. It's one thing to read it, but then listening back to you telling the story, it's like, oh man, well, I can't believe I made some of the decisions I made.
What is the one takeaway you would want readers to take away from reading the book?
You're truly responsible for your life and you have the power to create whatever it is you want to create. I believe God has a mission for all of us and it's up to us to fulfill that mission. Nothing's ever handed to us and we're twisted to believe that the handouts come whether it's because we're struggling or because if we pray hard enough, God will give it to us. And that's not the way it works. It genuinely works with consistent hard work. Anything worth having is going to take work. If you want to lose weight, it's going to take work. Yeah, you could take a shot, but you'll lose muscle too, right? And
Hmm.
so I think it's so important for us to just accept that it's going to be hard and accept that it's going to take work. And I hope that's what people really take it from the book. And I hope they feel inspired to go create what it is they want to live in life.
That's awesome. Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you so much, Sean. I'm so glad that we made this happen.